Yo, what up, and welcome back to Pinoy News. Man, listen, I got a really good one for y'all today as far as things is really concerned, right? This is an article from Black Enterprise. I actually got it off of one of my news apps, right? I don't know, like I have news apps on my phone that send me news all the time, right? For all y'all to be like sending me articles and stuff. Like most of the time I already know about it, and I'm just like, I get sick of being depressed at a certain point. Like, you get tired of like hearing about dumb shit that happens all the time. It's like, man, listen, like, or stuff that you told people were gonna happen, and then they go, man, look at this. And I'm like, I fucking told you it's gonna happen. Like, y'all need to listen. You know what I mean? But this one here is most definitely an interesting one, right? Because it's something that I've been speaking about for a long time as far as stuff's concerned. All right. Candace Owens says it's time to pull our kids out of school because they're being taught how to hate white people. Right. And I love this conversation as a whole. Like, I thoroughly enjoy this conversation. I think this might be a little bit of a long one as far as stuff's really concerned, because in the end of the day, right, there's a lot to this. You know what I'm saying? There's quite a bit to this whole mentality as a whole in general, right? And I'm trying to get this to stop moving. All right. Man, listen. All right. During a Fox interview with Maria Bartiromo, Candace Owens, who's a conservative activist and author who's known for her commentary, responded to Fox host regarding her take on the critical race theory being added to so many schools' curriculum. Bartiromo stated that she wanted to discuss learning through the lens of race contradicts everything America stands for, and then she opened the meat of the dialogue by mentioning a piece from her friend's son's class. It reportedly stated, if you identified a white, come to a meeting because we want to make sure you can thrive and strive not to be a racist. Man, listen, seriously. They're assuming every white kid is a racist, Candace Bartiromo later remarked during the interview. Owens responded affirmatively while mentioning that Megyn Kelly pulled her children out of school for similar reasons. And this is a big topic that I cover extensively. I routinely believe that it's time for us to pull our kids out of school and I know people say, man, listen, like on some serious stuff, it keeps moving because like there's so much stuff, right? Oh, well, not all of us can afford to do that. This country wasn't built on people having a lot of money when they were homeschooling. We're starting to see this more and more, this indoctrination that's happening, Owens responded. The guest continued while mentioning that they're trying to teach Marxist ideology. Owens also added that hard academics such as learning science and mathematics subjects are being replaced. They're learning how to hate white people. They're learning how to hate their country. And this is problematic for the future. What they're trying to do is guarantee that they have an ignorant group of people that vote based on emotions. It's a Democrat long-term strategy. And it's finally coming into fruition, Owens said, wrapping up her sentiments on the topic. The critical race theory and the issue of people of color being oppressed and exploited in inherently racist ways has been repeatedly gaining momentum. The New York Post previously reported that Kelly said she was pulling her kids out of a woke Upper West Side private school, according to the article. A letter allegedly circulated accusing white people of reveling in state-sanctioned depravity and comparing white children to killer cops. Kelly reportedly read directly from the letter written by Nalia Weber, executive director of the nonprofit Orleans Public Education Network. All right, so here's why this is a long conversation, right? In the end of the day, and this is kind of important to understand. And this is where I really get down to. And I'll put this up on screen because it's important at the moment. What is a culture, right? And I think this is something that we're missing as a whole, especially in America and as white people in America, right? Because when I introduce myself, I don't stand here and say, hey, I'm American or hey, I'm white. You know what I'm saying? I say, hey, I'm an Italian dude, right? You know what I'm saying? Like, like when we have these conversations of like where you're trying to go, this is what my perspective is in life. Like, this is where I'm coming from in my cultural heritage, right? Because I don't want to be seen as just white because it's not a thing. That's just a corporate designation of what I am, right? Like, that's what you click on the box when they go, when they ask you, what's your race? Because let's be honest here, white is not a race, okay? Europe, just like Africa, just like Asia, right? Like, you would never just stand here and go, oh man, like fucking that person's Asian, right? Like, that person's, Chinese, right? Well, like, you wouldn't say that person's Oriental, right? Or that person's, you know what I'm saying, a Mongoloid. You would say that individual there, you know what I'm saying, is Laotian or Vietnamese or, you know, Japanese or Korean or Filipino, right? You wouldn't stand there and go, oh man, you know, like that guy, he's just Middle Eastern. Nah, he's like, oh, he's Pakistani or he's Iraqi or he's Iranian, he's Shia, he's Sunni, right? And these are all different people, right? These are all different races with different cultures. And it's important to understand that. This is like black folks, right? Like black folks are all fucked up in Africa because like the borders got redrawn other than places like Ethiopia, which Ethiopia was never conquered by the colonizers. And a lot of it had to do with geography and a lot of it has to do with the size of, you know what I mean, the strength of the warriors there. But, you know what I mean, either way it goes, it's just like Europe. There's a huge difference between somebody who's Croatian and an individual who's from Spain or who's a Spaniard, right? Those are two completely different people. And that's important to understand. Like there's a difference between somebody who's British and, you know what I mean, somebody who's German. Those are two different people. There's a difference between an Italian and a Polish person. They're different individuals as a whole. Like, yes, they can live amongst each other and chill and have fun and recreate, you know, and fucking drink and spend time together. But on the same point, they're not the same people. And that's important to understand. And we as Americans, like we've lost that mentality as human beings to stand here and be able to go like, oh, this is my culture. And the reason why that's important to understand and the reason why it's important to have a culture, not as a white person, right? And this is really, really important and really, really big, right? That, you know, you shouldn't stand here and have just an American white culture because that's not a culture as a whole. We have 50 different states. This is a continent. It's not a fucking country. This is a fucking continent. Right? This is like, yo, and literally it stretches from, you know, places that for 5 months out of the year, they're snow covered the whole way to where there's deserts that reach 140 degrees in the summertime. Right? And they never see snow and they never see rain. There's mountains and forests and plains and swamps and deltas all through, like, you know, in different parts of this country. And each of these creates a different culture of people. Right? There's individuals, you know, who live around nothing but agriculture. There's people who live inside of, you know, giant metropolitan areas that have never seen, you know, open fields, who have never been on a mountain, who's never, you know what I mean, seen a forest. These are different cultures of people. And that's important to understand. And the reason why I say we need a culture as white people as a whole, right? Like you need your own culture. Like your culture of who you came from in Europe. And then you add from there. Because it's what stops the bullshit. It's what gives you a baseline of who you are as a human being. Like being an individual's cool, right? But you as an individual can't hold up against an entire group. You can't hold up against a collective of individuals because you as an individual are one solitary person and the collective will always win. But if you already have a collective, you already have a custom, you already have a culture, you have a baseline to start with and a place where you can stand here and go like, yo, this is my beginning. This is my square. This is my box. This is my line. And I will go no further than this. And that's really important to have as a human. That's really important to have as a person, as a man. You have to have something that gives you like reason to be able to say the things that you say. Like, all right, when you had kings, they said, well, you know, I rule by divine right. Like God gives me these rights. And that was a basic lean towards the reason for having a system in a logical sense with the rest of the population. When you stand here and go, oh man, you know, we shouldn't, you know what I mean, stand here and have critical race theory, and they go, why? And you go, because it's bad and it, you know, it harms white people. And they go, well, white people harm everybody. I'm like, well, then you can just, all you have to do is go, well, bro, like I'm Croatian. Like I don't have anything to do with that. That don't have anything to do with my culture. Like, yo, my people are Slavic. We were slaves long before you, right? You know what I mean? Like, yo, and you can have a place to find shelter and refuge from their bullshit mentally, psychologically, right? When you stand here and go like, yeah, my people were British, like I ain't got shit to do with your nonsense right now. Legitimately, I have nothing to do with your garbage. Like, you have to have something to, like fall back on and go like, yo, this is who I am as a human being. You can't continue to stand here and think that as an individual you can fight against this bullshit and win this fucking argument with these individuals who are screaming emotionally. You have to have a group, a collective, something that holds y'all together and something that you can be proud of and something that you want to fight for. Because fighting against something isn't going to help you. Legitimately, you're being reactionary instead of like, standing here, being preventative. In the end of the day, you have to be able to have an offensive position. You have to have grounds you can take. Because what are you really fighting for? You're fighting to stand here and have no culture. And these individuals are trying to stand here and fight to take over a culture and to put a new culture in place. You're going to lose every time. Like, it is what it is, just in psychological terms. And, in the terms of standing here, I'm trying to think of how to put this. In the terms of standing here having, I don't even know how to put it, man, legitimately, right? Like, you're standing here fighting a defensive battle, and defense doesn't win in the end of the day, right? You're going to keep having inches and inches and inches taken away from you. It's like Ted Kaczynski said, like, yo, the system wants to fight against racism. And, when these individuals want to protest and want to fight and want to yell, like, yo, they stand here and they fight against racism, and sexism and oppression, right? But legitimately, like, the system wants that because the system wants you all inside of their square so you can continue to buy goods for them and you're not starting your own shit to build for your own people and your own culture. We need to be more separate and not more together. In the end of the day, this unity bullshit is not positive for any of us, because once you end up having this loud vocal minority and these individual Marxists coming up screaming and yelling and hollering at everybody and coming out of these universities, until you're ready to stand here and get rid of colleges as a whole, because that's what needs to happen. These institutions all need to be burned to the fucking ground and done away with in the end of the day. That's what needs to happen. But you're not willing to make that fucking move. You're not willing to make that, that fucking sacrifice. Because like, people are more concerned with continuing to have corporate growth, continuing to have GDP growth, continuing to move up the value-added scale and, compete with the rest of the world. They're not concerned with standing here competing, not standing here. They're not concerned with standing here keeping your nation as, yours. You're not concerned with any of that bullshit. You're more concerned with continuing to compete in the global scale, when in reality, like, yo, we're fucking good on solo. We don't need anybody else. We don't need to interact with the rest of these motherfuckers. We cool. Until you realize this, there's not a whole lot you can do. Y'all, look, Tom Peace, Pinoy News, man. Look, check me out on Odyssey. Y'all know the deal, man. I'll be around later. Yo, peace be like one. I'm out.